changing your voice for your content. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. I wanted to mention real quick a story that I heard about Abbott and Costello, the famous comedy team. If you're not familiar with them, go and check some of their stuff out on YouTube, especially their old comedy routine, Who's On First, is a classic. Abbott and Costello were a comedy team that lasted from the late 30s into the into the late 50s. They had a good solid 20-year run, and within that time they put out some great stuff. They did a lot of really good material on radio. They first they did live routines, and then they did radio, and then they did television, quite a lot on television, and then they started putting out movies. And one of the most strangest movies for their style, but funny movie is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Definitely worth watching. You track that down and watch it. The reason why I wanted to bring them up is because I was amazed at, when I was young, I didn't see a whole lot of their reruns on television, and so I happened upon them accidentally when I started getting into old-time radio programs that they used to play in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and got some Abbott and Costello to listen to, and I was like, oh, these guys are funny. This is really good stuff. And then I started talking to people who had watched them when they were live and they were on TV and were a thing, and they said, oh yeah, they were the best. And then you start seeing, over time, you start seeing that they've had a huge impact on all of culture. I mean, they had cartoon characters based off of them, either explicitly or specifically. They had songs written about them. They were very, very big in terms of pop culture. And one thing that always kind of got in my crawl a little bit is sometimes Costello would go on and on at this really high-pitched, annoying voice, and he'd just go a bit too far into this falsetto that that was annoying, and it was kind of meant to be annoying, but it just always seemed to be a little bit off to me, and I could never quite put my finger on it. Well, years later, I've seen interviews and everything with Lou Costello when he's talking normal. And he doesn't sound like that at all. He has a deeper voice. And they said, and I just read recently, that when Bud Abbott and Lou Costello first started doing radio, they had a difficult time with their routines because it's very specific on who's saying what. But the problem was, they both sounded a lot alike. In person, they looked very different, but they sounded a lot alike on radio. So Lou Costello had to make his voice a lot more higher pitched to be able to differentiate. And it was only because of the medium. If they were on television, if they were in a live crowd, it would not have mattered as much. But because he was able to make this unique voice, he, in a sense, became more popular. He became very something that was very recognizable. It was very clear cut. It would just cut straight through to your ears. I mean, you could hear it coming from a mile away, and so it became a voice that people imitated. His phrases and everything got picked up. Bugs Bunny always uses the phrase, "Ain't I a stinker?" That's from Costello. That's from Lou Costello. That was his original line. So it's really funny how that worked. How just making a slight adjustment. It wasn't just a slight adjustment. It was a pretty heavy adjustment if you think of from his perspective. But from the routines themselves, making a slight adjustment just to fit the medium ended up changing everything and allowed them to differentiate themselves from each other, but also differentiate their act from everybody else's. Here's how it comes back to you. Now, if you're a business owner, if you're an executive, if you're doing any form of content marketing, especially online, that's what we like to call content marketing, because it could be long form, it could be short form, it could be over podcasts, it could be over videos like this one here. If you're doing any type of online content marketing, or any type of content marketing in that sense, you have to realize what medium you're working through. If it's audio, video, if it's text, whatever medium you're working through is going to have little quirks, and you may have to adjust your voice. Not outright change your voice necessarily, and I don't necessarily mean just your vocal voice. I'm talking about your voice in terms of what you're presenting out there. You may have to adjust slightly in order to differentiate and to be able to stand out from the crowd and to be able to get attention. It's a necessary thing. Everyone's had to do it. I can give you example after example. This is just the latest one that I learned about. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Just something to keep in mind when you're adjusting and trying things out and looking to get attention, especially online. Everything starts sounding the same after a while. So hopefully that's helpful. We'll be back tomorrow. Go grab a free copy of my book, 9 Ways to Amazon Proof Your Business. You can get a free copy at amazonproofbook.com. We'll be back here tomorrow night. In the meantime, you get out there and let the magic happen.